You're sitting at your desk, washing dishes, scrolling through something forgettable, and then suddenly, without warning, a face appears in your mind. Someone you haven't thought about in years. Maybe it's a friend from middle school, an ex from another lifetime, a coworker you lost touch with, a mentor who shaped you and then disappeared into the current of life. The memory doesn't arrive gently. It arrives with clarity. You can see their expression. You can hear the specific way they laughed or said your name. You can feel the emotional residue of a moment you shared, something unresolved or tender or strange. And then comes the quiet cascade of questions. Why now? Why them? Is this random or does it mean something? Did they just think about me? Are they okay? Is something about to happen? The experience feels too specific to be coincidence, too vivid to be dismissed as neural noise. It feels like the universe tapping you on the shoulder, like some invisible thread still connects you to this person across time and distance. You might even wonder if they're about to reach out, if you'll see their name pop up on your phone in the next few days, as if your mind somehow knew before your reality caught up. This is one of the most universally human experiences we rarely talk about. It crosses cultures, belief systems, and generations. It happens to the skeptical and the spiritual alike, and it leaves us standing at the intersection of science, psychology, and something harder to name. The truth is, this phenomenon is far more fascinating than any single explanation can contain. It's not purely mystical, but it's also not entirely random. What's happening in these moments reveals something profound about how memory works, how emotions encode themselves into our biology, and how deeply we're shaped by the people we've known, even long after they've left our lives.
Let's begin with what we know about the brain, because understanding the mechanics doesn't make the experience less meaningful. It makes it more remarkable. Your brain is not a filing cabinet. Memories are not stored in neat folders waiting to be retrieved. Instead, memory functions more like a web, a vast associative network where everything is connected to everything else through invisible threads of similarity, emotion, context, and meaning. When you remember a person, you're not pulling up a single file. You're reactivating a constellation of neural patterns. The hippocampus, a seahorse-shaped structure deep in your brain, plays a central role in this process. It doesn't store memories itself, but it acts as an index, linking sensory details, emotions, and contexts together. When those links are strong enough, especially when they're tied to emotional weight, they become more easily reactivated. Now here's where it gets interesting. Most of this reactivation happens beneath your conscious awareness. Your brain is constantly scanning your environment for patterns. It's comparing what you're experiencing now to what you've experienced before. It's looking for matches, even tiny ones. A stranger's laugh that sounds like someone you used to know, a scent in the air, a phrase in a song, the angle of afternoon light, a feeling of loneliness or anticipation that matches a feeling you had years ago. These environmental cues don't need to be obvious. In fact, they're usually so subtle you'd never consciously notice them. But your brain notices. And when enough of these small activation signals align, a memory that's been dormant for years can suddenly surface with startling clarity. This is called priming. Your subconscious mind was already working on this memory before it appeared in your awareness. The moment it feels sudden is actually the end of a process, not the beginning. This doesn't mean the memory is meaningless. It means your brain is far more intricate and responsive than we often give it credit for. There's also something called spontaneous retrieval, where memories emerge without any deliberate effort to recall them. Research shows that these memories tend to be more emotional, more vivid, and more tied to unresolved or significant experiences. Your brain prioritizes emotional salience. It remembers what mattered. And people, especially people who stirred something in you, are coded with emotional tags that make them more likely to resurface. The brain is also predictive. It's always trying to anticipate what might happen next based on past patterns. Sometimes it will surface a memory of a person because something in your current psychological state mirrors a state you were in when you knew them.
You might be feeling uncertain, and your mind brings up someone who made you feel uncertain. You might be on the edge of a transition, and suddenly you think of someone who was there during your last big shift. The memory isn't about them, it's about the emotional texture they represent. If this is already making something click about your own experiences, hit like so this reaches others who've had these moments and quietly wondered what they meant.
But let's go deeper, because neuroscience only explains the how. It doesn't explain the why it feels so charged. Certain people leave deeper imprints than others, not because they were in your life longer, but because of the emotional intensity they carried. A person you knew for 3 months might occupy more psychological space than someone you saw every day for years. Intensity creates stickiness. When someone made you feel seen, challenged, attracted, afraid, inspired, or heartbroken, your brain wrapped that experience in neurochemical significance. Dopamine, oxytocin, cortisol, adrenaline. These chemicals don't just make you feel something in the moment, they change how that moment is stored. And when a memory is stored with emotional weight, it doesn't fade the same way neutral memories do. It stays active in your internal landscape, even when you're not consciously thinking about it. There's also something called the Zeigarnik effect, a psychological principle that shows we remember unfinished tasks more vividly than completed ones. This applies to relationships too. If something was left unsaid, unresolved, or incomplete, your mind keeps it in a kind of open loop. You might think you've moved on, but part of your brain is still holding space for closure that never came. That's why you might suddenly think of someone you had a falling out with, someone you never got to thank, someone you loved but never told, someone who disappeared without explanation. The emotional loop is still active, and every so often your mind returns to it, trying to make sense of what was left unfinished. Sometimes the person who appears in your mind isn't even the point. They're a symbol. They represent a version of you that no longer exists. When you think of someone from high school, you're not just remembering them, you're remembering who you were when you knew them, what you wanted, what you feared, what you didn't yet understand about yourself. As you grow and change, your brain periodically reviews old chapters of your identity. It's checking in, it's integrating, and sometimes that review process pulls up the people who were witnesses to those earlier versions of you. They become anchors to your past self. Thinking about them might actually be your mind's way of measuring how far you've come, or noticing what you've lost, or recognizing patterns you're repeating. The person is a portal, and walking through that portal, even briefly, can tell you something about where you are now. Now let's talk about timing, because this is where the experience starts to feel mystical. You think about someone out of nowhere, and then days later they text you, or you see their name somewhere, or you run into a mutual friend who mentions them, or you have a dream about them that same night. It feels like proof that the thought wasn't random, proof that something deeper is at play. And maybe it is, but before we go there, it's important to understand a few cognitive patterns that make these moments feel more significant than they might be. The first is confirmation bias. You remember the hits and forget the misses. You think about dozens of people throughout any given month, most of whom never reappear. But when one does, your brain highlights it, tags it as meaningful, and stores it as evidence of connection. The misses fade into background noise. The second is retrospective meaning-making. Humans are narrative creatures. We create stories to make sense of randomness. When a coincidence occurs, we often construct a timeline that makes it feel intentional, even when the events were unrelated. You might have been primed to think about that person because of a subconscious cue, and they might have reached out for completely unrelated reasons, but your brain stitches the two events together into a single, meaningful story. The third is the sheer statistical likelihood of overlap. If you've known hundreds of people over the course of your life, and they're all still out there living, thinking, scrolling, reminiscing, the odds that one of you will think of the other around the same time aren't actually that low. We underestimate how much mundane synchronicity occurs simply because we exist in overlapping networks of memory and attention. None of this is to say the experience isn't real or meaningful.
It's to say that meaning doesn't require magic. The brain's pattern-seeking nature is powerful enough on its own to create moments that feel transcendent. And yet, there are frameworks outside of neuroscience that people use to interpret these experiences, and they deserve to be acknowledged with respect. In many spiritual traditions, the idea that thinking about someone means they're thinking about you isn't considered coincidence, it's considered resonance. Some believe that human beings are not isolated units of consciousness, but interconnected fields of energy and attention. In this view, a strong emotional bond doesn't sever just because physical proximity ends. The connection remains, dormant perhaps, but still alive in some subtle dimension. When one person's energy shifts, the other might feel it, not through telepathy in the sci-fi sense, but through a kind of emotional attunement that we don't yet have instruments to measure. Carl Jung called this the collective unconscious, a shared psychological substrate where archetypes, symbols, and deeply human experiences live. In his view, we're all drawing from the same well, and certain people, certain memories might surface not because of personal triggers alone, but because they represent something universal that's stirring in the larger human story. Others speak of energetic chords, the idea that intimate relationships create lasting imprints in our energy bodies, and that these chords can vibrate or activate when one person is in emotional motion. Still others talk about intuitive awareness, the possibility that some part of us knows things our rational mind hasn't caught up to yet, that we might sense when someone is in need, in transition, or remembering us, not through magic, but through a sensitivity we've been trained to ignore. Here's what's important to understand. These are interpretive frameworks. They are not proven mechanisms. They are meaning-making tools that some people find helpful, beautiful, or resonant. They may point to something real that science hasn't yet found language for, or they may be poetic ways of describing what neuroscience already explains. Either way, they are valid as personal experience, but they should not be confused with objective fact. You're allowed to feel that a memory means something without needing to prove it. You're allowed to honor the sense that something deeper is happening without abandoning your rationality.
So where does that leave us? You are not psychic. You are not delusional. You are not manufacturing significance out of nothing. You are a deeply feeling, neurologically complex, socially wired human being whose brain has evolved to detect patterns, prioritize emotion, and keep the people who mattered alive inside you long after they've gone. When someone from your past suddenly appears in your mind, it's because your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. It's connecting dots. It's processing emotion. It's reviewing your story. It's integrating who you were with who you are. And sometimes, just sometimes, it's preparing you for something, whether that's closure, reconnection, or simply a moment of reflection. The experience is meaningful because you are meaning-making. And that's not a flaw. That's the heart of being human. If you're someone who struggles with intrusive memories, with wondering if old connections still matter, with trying to make sense of your inner world when it feels chaotic, there's a resource that might help. I've created a free ebook called The Magic of Affirmations. It's designed to help you stabilize your internal narrative, understand the subconscious loops that shape your thoughts, and build a stronger, more compassionate relationship with your own mind, especially during moments when the past resurfaces unexpectedly. It's not about pretending the past doesn't matter. It's about learning to hold it without being held by it. You'll find the link in the description. It's free, and it's there to support you. So here's the question I'll leave you with. When someone from your past suddenly comes to mind, what emotion appears first? Is it nostalgia, curiosity, longing, or closure? Pay attention to that, because that first emotion is often the real message, not the person, the feeling. And understanding that feeling might be exactly what your mind was trying to show you all along.